Hi there, Mike with Stone Coat Countertops. What I'm going to show today is exactly how we make samples of Stone Coat Countertop projects. The reason we make samples is for a couple of different reasons. Number one, we like to get a test and a small piece of a big project. We don't like to start right on the big project. We want to do a small piece so that we know exactly what we're dealing with, exactly how to reproduce a color that we fall in love with, and so samples help us do that. Second reason samples are really important is if you're doing this as a business, customers love to see samples. And if you make samples that you can put in your truck and bring with you onto bids and things like that, man, it really helps. It gets it in their hands. They feel how smooth it is. They can feel how durable it is, and then they see the depth of the color. Seeing this in person, if you think it looks good on video and in pictures, wait till you see it in person. It just is so deep because of the 3D effects and because of the material. It just looks so natural and so real. So samples really sell your project. You don't need to. So how do we make samples? This is just 3/4 inch MDF. When you're building counters out of MDF, you always have some scrap MDF laying around. So I just took some scrap MDF, and these are 11 by 18. Sometimes they make them 12 by 12, but in this case, I wanted to do more of a rectangle look, just more of a realistic look in a kitchen. I put a small routed edge around the edge, and then we sanded the edge. The edge is just sanded with 220. On the bottom, I just took some scrap MDF and pin nailed 4 little feet. These will eventually come off, but what it does is it keeps the piece elevated off my work surface. That's really important so that the drips don't glue it to the work surface and you can move it later. So you can see here's a piece that has been primed with paint and primer in one. This is just a gray, and we're going to do all of these in we'll do some of them in similar base colors, but every one of them will be a completely different look by the time we're done. And I've already got a few drying, but we have 8 samples we're doing here, and it doesn't take a long time. But the more samples, the better. But if you're starting out a countertop business, I suggest starting with about 10 samples and then naming the colors that you do. And when your customer picks out one of the colors, they pick out whatever you named it. Also, what's really cool about doing 10 samples of your own is you learned how you did that color, and then if a customer hires you to do and reproduce that color, you know exactly how you did it. So that's important to keep your recipe. Whether you film yourself do the samples or you write the recipe of how you did that on the back of your sample, it's really important to know how you got to that point. So again, we're going to show you how to do these samples. Start with MDF and we'll go from there. But first thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some paint and primer, and I'm just going to get a little bit of white. We've been asked to do a sample with white base with a gold and silver and bronze, I believe, vein. We'll look up what exactly they look for. So we're going to do that vein through this piece, but the first thing we need to do is create a good white base. White, a little scary because white is white. It's really bright. I like to tone it down. This looks like a white when you get all your colors and stuff on it, but it's really a gray. So when we're doing Carrara marble and things like that, we go with gray. But in this case, they wanted white, which is totally cool. And but we'll show you how to make that white color fast so it doesn't fade with the UV and things like that. But first step, put your base color down. So we're just gonna, I get some base out on the MDF, and then I do the edges, because the edges is what really soaks it up. So when you do your edges, you're gonna need to do at least 2 coats. And that's what we do. We do 2 coats on them. So do your edges good. And when you make your samples and when you make countertops, it's really important to have the underside of it tapered back a little bit or beveled with that small little bevel bit that we use, or a little radius bit. I just sanded these out of bevel just so the material goes down and it flows underneath the actual sample. In this actual sample video, we'll show you the whole thing, but most of our sample videos, we're just going to start with the paint and primer in one and then go from there so they're not so long and boring. So here we go. We'll continue rolling these edges. And I'm just using a 1/4 inch nap roller. Nothing special, just got it at Home Depot. Really easy to use. And doing this part is quite easy. Actually, you can get your little kiddos to help do this. They have fun painting, and really doesn't matter how it looks on there. You're just trying to get color. because all the roller marks and all that stuff's going to disappear as you do your project. But kids love helping mom and dad do this part. Alright. So as you can see, it takes very little paint to make your samples. And you know, Home Depot sells little tiny jars of tester paint. You can get those because they're cheap and you can get a bunch of different colors for pretty inexpensive. That's a good thing to get if you're just going to make samples with it. It's not the paint and primer in one, but for the sample, that's not nearly as important because this isn't going to be holding up to kitchen abuse and that, but the Stone Coat Countertop epoxy resin on top of just about anything is going to really make it tough. So keep that in mind. Get the little jars of different colors, and now you can have a bunch of different colors and not having to buy a gallon at a time. Okay, so there's the white on there. We're going to go ahead and do the rest of these and show you what they look like as we coat them. Okay, I'm going to show you another really cool way to do a base color, just something that you could play with. Let's go ahead and start with some white. So I'm just going to roll some white on this, and this can be done with any color combination, but just to give the piece some interest, let's show you what we can do here. A lot of this won't show up, but it will if you're not doing a ton of top coat color and stuff. Let's show. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll this on, and then I'm going to add another base color with the roller and just kind of meld the two together a little bit. It's just a cool look. Alright. And I like to kind of put it on rather sloppy on this, just kind of go wet on wet when you're doing this, just to get the desired look that I'm looking for. I'll put that black roller back on, get some black on there, and I vary how much I put on, but there's not too much black on there, and we'll just roll that together, just kind of move it, and then you don't need much, just a little pressure, and you'll have a really cool. You don't want to overwork it because then it'll all become the same color again. So as you can see, I just quickly did that, and I'll actually just roll over this a little bit here. And there you go. Okay, this is that little tester that you can get at Home Depot. They're really inexpensive, but this is how you can get a bunch of little colors in one shot. So this is just a light tan, and we're going to roll this with light tan. It's almost going to look the same color as the MDF, but when you do MDF and you want that color, don't just go over the raw MDF, because you'll see the seam where you did your drop edge. Where you glue your drop edge to, you got to use the paint to hide that seam. So even if you like this color, still cover it with something and you'll hide your seam. Okay, we're just going to fog this piece with some color. We've gotten our base color on, it's dry, and we sanded the surface with 220. Now we're just going to put a little bit of base color to give it some depth. And we just fog that paint on, especially focus on the edges, and then just bring a little color over. And that's done. And that will be a really good start to our Stone Coat project there.